Hi. This is such a weird angle, the way this is set up. Okay. Isn't that beautiful? Or would it be better? Maybe that would be better. Fame is a gun. Okay, I'm falling in love with it the more I see it on camera. Yeah, that's really dynamic and beautiful. I love it. Okay. I've been painting a lot. I've been painting a lot in time-lapse, but when you do it in time-lapse, it's like hours of work is condensed into a few minute clip. And I feel like that really divorces you from the process sometimes. Like, it's really amazing, but also sometimes I've noticed the camera's not set up the right way, what have you. So I think there's something about being connected to the process and the slowness of it and not just the finished result. So let me see. Yeah, I like you guys right there. Ironically, probably only like a few seconds of this. Hell, I could be doing voiceover right now in the clip and I wouldn't even know now, but the way. It's my purple paint. I think this purple paint is like my favorite color I've gotten from Nova Colors. A lot of them are really stunning, but the purple just shows up so beautifully. And I want to make it, hurry you guys right up. My hands are wild right now. Oh, there you are. Okay. Bless me. Okay. With my art, I don't usually do people or figures. It's often just these abstract lines, and then the abstract lines shape the visuals, but I really wanted to do a person. To me, she's just kind of this goddess from the stars. Like, I want people, when they look at her, to kind of feel like they're being transported, and it just kind of open up something through gazing on it. But the only thing I drew out, and I wish I'd kept the original drawing I did, was I started with the UFO shape, and then I built a head and like this crazy hair around it. And then I painted it onto a bigger scale because it was supposed to be for a much larger mural, but that fell through. And I'm so grateful that my parents gave me this opportunity. And it just feels so good to have a project again. Like something I'm truly passionate about. But when you go in with no design too, it's so easy to kind of end up at a point where you just feel stuck. Because oftentimes I'll look at it and then feel like I've lost the plot, like a design element I like will just disappear. Now I'm remembering that I wanted to add more orange into this for the sake of the shape. I'm a dream girl, but you're not my type. But it's so funny going from being somebody who's watched so many videos, like, I'm kind of obsessed with television. And storytelling and stories. I have been from a very young age. And I'm the kind of person who likes to try things that interest me. And so when I've been passionate about something, like theater, that was the first thing that really just got me going, got me up out of bed for the longest time. But then those interests transitioned because theater just, it wasn't working for me anymore. You can't, okay. And those are some long stories. But when I did it, I ended up doing stage crew. And then I did a TV video production class. And when I was in middle school, my semester project was directing. So it's like I learned about so many of the zones of it. And so I've watched a lot of TikTok, I've watched a lot of YouTube. And when you're watching the videos, it's one experience, but then when you go to actually film the footage and do all of the actual tasks, it's kind of strange and eerie. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I think, but I kind of want it to look like her dress is like its own realm. I also love this orange paint. I've struggled with it at the top. I spent so long on the UFO and like I painted it, and then I realized none of the lines matched up with the drawing I did, which, not the end of the world, but I realized I loved the drawing I did. And I painted a version of the dress with lines, and then I just took a paper towel and I smeared it all. So that's what has like this pink color in the background. And it did actually show me like the silhouette of the dress, which is something I was struggling with, because that was the one like piece of instruction my dad like clearly gave me, was that he wanted the fairy garden to open up into the fairies into the woman's dress. And so otherwise they were not like, they just kind of were like, it's up to you, very basic theme. So I really wanted to make sure that I listened to the one thing they asked of me. And when I was a little girl, I loved to draw dresses more than like anything, but like those kind of like medieval skirts. So I would draw those and then just do all these bizarre designs in there. So this project kind of feels meant for me in a lot of ways, because I've kind of been at a dead end for a while now. And things are starting to change, but they're not like fully self-sufficient yet. But at the same time, things have been getting better. And this project is like one example that I get to use my time in this way and create. Like, I love creating back here at night with the lights and how quiet it is. Can you see anything? I had a dream last night, and my dreams are starting to get like a bit more vivid. Oh, I kind of like that. This paint is not easy to get off of clothes, though. And I got some in my hair. It sounds like it's about to start raining again. Oh, fucking hell. But I kind of cleaned up the area because there's a kid's birthday party tomorrow, and I left them a note. Oh yeah, it's raining again. We could go under the tarp. This sun gold though is supposed to be for the daytime mural, so I can't use too much of it. But it is so fucking stunning. I really feel like I would be a great thing for like a color paint company to sponsor, because my art is so color focused. That looks really smudgy. There, okay. And there, I see. Okay. orange. The orange is drying weird. I'm a dream girl, you're not my type. Oh yeah, I forgot about some of the ideas I had for this place. I'm definitely gonna mix it, I think. And then you get it, get it, get it, get it. Oh, whoa. But this video I've just made here, probably 15 seconds of time lapse. There you go. Okay, I think it looks cool. I kind of want it to, I think it kind of gives like woods at night. I know that's strange maybe to say, but like, it's okay. That's the story it tells to me. You've got a front row seat tonight. That's what it takes for the glamorous life. Rain is a gun to drive. Other news, my old job apparently is doing like a cream bagel like coffee drink, and it's making me genuinely grateful for being fired because I don't have to deal with that promotion. It's like this shimmery white. think I would do really well at an artist residency. I just get really inspired by like the energy of new places. About this. I do think it's kind of a flex. I can just sit down with no plan on what to paint and then something this beautiful emerges from the nothingness. I don't know about that though. Yeah, I don't know if I'm that there. No, okay, I'm kind of seeing it as I sit back. Okay, I'm kind of loving it. It's kind of winning me over. Should I try to mix the sapphire? I really think the sapphire color is absolutely stunning, but I don't think it does well when it's just laid over on like a blank background. I think it looks a lot better when it's combined with something. But also one of my rules for painting in this style is essentially you do it as long as you have the feeling. When it starts to feel overchewed, like, you gotta let it rest. You gotta let the painting rest, and you've gotta let the painting breathe. Because it's like the painting is configuring itself, and so if you keep pushing it and pushing it into one thing, because especially the way the colors work is lines can change the whole structure and the whole outcome of it. So when you let it like chill and you let it breathe for a moment, come back in a few days, sometimes things you didn't like or you didn't see, you start to see how it moves together organically. Like this line style is very similar to the original dress I had, but it didn't flow with it because I couldn't figure out how to make like this shape and this shape blend. Now, the thing I'm kind of worried about is her arms are like hidden behind her, which I don't think that's ideal. I don't know where to put hands in paintings right now. And arms, that is something. Oh, that's beautiful. Baby's I heard Rachel Ziegler's version of that like in an edit, and now it's stuck in my head. Whoa, whoa. Kind of Halloween-esque. Okay. Okay, I'm getting eaten up by bugs. I think it's time we go to bed. All right. Very content with the progress we've made tonight. Yeah, sorry, but now I'm just like itching the bug bites, so. But I think it's very beautiful and very dynamic. I think like little me would be so happy if she saw this, and that I think is who I want to make art for. Because I think as a kid, I just loved creating art. You know, I love to sing. I think singing's actually been like the most consistent thread. I'd like, in my room, I would come up with stories about like cleaning my room. Just, I'm clairaudient. Oh, my throat. What the fuck? Um, damn, okay. That was bizarre. Yeah, just kind of always feeling like having conversations with the universe. Through, I guess that's just one of the words I use for it. But just having conversations with the universe through creating. You know, whether that be creating stories or creating art. I've always loved creating and playing and using my imagination. I think I got distracted trying to filter it into one zone for a long time. But I feel like I've lived so many lives inside this one life. And I'm sure many people can say that, but I've lived so many different lives, or my life was a TV show, so many different genres. And, you know, I don't have to just be one thing. You know, I have all these hobbies and talents and passions for a reason. And that's beautiful. And I think it's interesting. Like, I spent a lot of my childhood trying to prepare myself for motherhood and prepare myself for marriage. And then it wasn't working for me, you know, the dating and all of that stuff. And at first I really struggled with it, but now I'm really grateful for how that period has prepared me, and realizing that my life probably won't be that mold that I was trying to get myself to fit. And kind of maybe, you know, just letting that side experience and breathe and create without having to keep it so crammed shut all the time, because I don't know the outcome of anything. So, nighty-night. That's my message to thanks for spending the time painting with me, loves. I hope you have a protected sleep. Just to let you guys know, this space is not a safe space for conservatives, Republicans, anybody who is anti-human. You know, we are pro-choice over here, pro-LGBTQ, pro-immigrant rights, anti-cop, anti-ICE, anti-anything that really brutalizes people and their bodies. And if you support that, this is not the space for you. This is not the space where you will be catered to or comfortable or safe. And I hope my videos do make you feel uncomfortable and unsafe in your decisions and in how you decide to view and treat other people, because that's unacceptable and it's ridiculous, and it shows such a lack of intelligence and brainwashing. And I know that this brainwashing is heavily ingrained into our cultures from the time we're born to years before us, but so has the trauma that has been inflicted on people in the meantime. So that our whole world, our whole society right now is functioning off of the torture of innocent bodies, specifically black and brown bodies. And if you are okay with that, if you're comfortable with that, if you enjoy that, I hope that hatred that you're wishing onto others is put back onto you. Because this is a page that values people's freedom, you know? Ever since I was little, I have wanted the world to be a space where people can fully express themselves and fully breathe and fully exhale. And that can't happen when people are being tortured, and when people are being invalidated for trauma they rightfully carry in their bodies. So things that have never been resolved, never been acknowledged by the government or in history, when we're taught the exact opposite. And one of the reasons why I want to share my art is to encourage people to share their art, you know? One person can't change everything, but I think the more I show up as myself, if that can encourage somebody else to show up more as themselves every single day and fight for themselves and fight for their protection and show their art and put that into the world in a completely different form. When everybody, that's something. I think everybody has a soul, and I think everybody starts with a soul. I think I could talk about this for hours. I think people sell their souls, not necessarily like to the devil or anything, but metaphorically, through the choices they make, through what they encourage, through what they sit near, through what they enable. Your soul is impacted by that fundamentally. And there are so many people who probably don't care. And I had a difficult childhood, I would say. A lot of mental health issues where I think I was reacting to stuff that was legitimate and concerning, but when you're a child, you don't have power in this world. People don't want to listen to you. But it's weird because when you're a child, you're the most potent in so many ways. Your soul, you hear your soul, you know less of what is taught to you about this world and more of what you sense from the world through your lens. And I think so many people out there, that is always what has brought me back to life, or that is what brought me back to life, was that concentrated effort to remember who I was and how I interact with the world as a child, and becoming a person who would be safe for her and would be safe for other children. Because there was a time where I didn't really want to keep living. And that time has visited me more than I would like. And because I think that part of me didn't want to live as a version of me that had my soul snuffed out and live in that version. I didn't see the point in it. And so I didn't see sometimes how I could continue. And I don't know, through a lot of that, through trying to talk my way out of things and the emotional battles I had with people, specifically my parents, and the complications of all of that, it taught me a lot. And it taught me that you can bare your soul to somebody, you can open yourself up completely, and oftentimes that won't be enough to move them. And while there's complete power in bearing your soul, and if you feel called to do that, who am I to tell you not to? Oftentimes that can hurt you more, because you're exposing yourself to somebody who will claw out your belly. And that's something I'm trying to learn now, is the balance of showing up in the world and showing up for other people, but also protecting myself and not exposing myself, but not letting that protection completely cut myself off from the world. and trying to find reasons to keep staying here. When it feels like we're all tap dancing around this great big illusion that is built on torture. And sometimes the only thing that has gotten me out of these battles is the unseen, is the darkness, is, what we say isn't there. But, that's what... But that is so much more complex than we give it credit for, oftentimes. And I don't know, painting and drawing is one of those things that, the color just comes out, and I don't have to contain it, I don't have to control it, I just have to let it express itself. And it surprises me. And I think that's something beautiful about art too, is the brain and the mind can project so many things based off of what we've gone through, and I think that's really fair. I think there's value in revisiting the past. I think one thing I like about art and creating is it has the ability to genuinely surprise you and reorient you into something else. And I think that is incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful. And I think if everybody attuned more to the light, not the light, I don't know if that's the right word, attuned more to the soul inside of them, even if it's the smallest way, because I understand, or I don't know if I understand, but there's so much different about every single individual life that no one blanket statement can really truly apply to every individual light. And I think it's learning how to be your own guide, but also learning how to stand back and listen and learn what boundaries you're meant to cross and which boundaries you're not meant to cross. What spaces can carry beyond your comprehension, and how to honor that when you don't have that integrated inside of you in the same way. How do you show up for the collective and for what you want for other people? What you want for other people and what you want for yourself. And I think so many of the desires I was told to have were not things I actually wanted, but things I thought would get me to certain emotional places. And it's interesting, through being alone, I've reached some of the most euphoric states I've ever experienced, and I've reached some of the darkest states I've ever experienced, especially when I was in college. And when I was just walking and talking to the world, and just filtering out all of this garbage about people who I don't even talk to anymore, people who I never really knew or talked to, but were kind of in my social circles or around me or involved with me, but wouldn't let me in. And there was a time where I tried to really mold myself, to shape myself and just feel anxiety and whatever. But when I started feeling more peace through being alone, because at first it felt like this inevitable crushing experience, but now it feels the same as breathing, oh, you know, like, I think oftentimes I would feel really disappointed because what I wanted was like this deep depth of love and connection with people where I could hold their soul and they could hold my soul, and like through that we could expand together. And it was like I was constantly trying to make a group project out of my life. And I think oftentimes, sometimes with people it's scary, but you can tell that somebody's not for you sometimes through single conversation. And sometimes there's also the balance. I'm hearing my mother now as I talk, because I think my mom always kind of got scared of that sharpness within me, you know, afraid that I would cut off things that were good for me and cut off people that were good for me. And sometimes I wonder if I have, and other times, truthfully, there are people who I love deeply, but I'm so relieved they're not in my life anymore. I'm so happy they're not in my life anymore, because the mental exhaustion of keeping them there felt like a gnawing pit in my mind and in my stomach. And when I was forming relationships out of like that neediness, out of needing that ideal, out of all of that stuff, it's so embedded into the DNA of it. And I don't even really know if I know what I'm talking about at this point. It's late. I'm tired. And I feel self-conscious talking in front of people. Which is ironic, because I can really talk for long periods of time, obviously. Oh, this is a long video. But like how to talk about what's going on in the world. You know, how to say the things that need to be said. And also how to hold it all. You know? And how to see the future that's coming, and be prepared to live in that. I was painting the other day, and I painted the world as the world, and I think that's I don't know, I'm trying to be kinder to myself, because there's a voice in my head that kind of is like, you hear the words I'm talking, but the words I'm thinking in my head are like a whole other type of conversation. But I wrote the world is the world, and I was thinking about how we all have like individual thought, like an individual world, you know, that is completely unique to us. Even like a sibling, you know, you wake up from the point you wake up from every day, you've encountered that unique combination of people in your life. And I think it's probably impossible that all of the people who you've interacted with the world, somebody has interacted with those exact same people. Like, I mean, even sitting next to a stranger on the bus, I'm talking about. Or I guess in our society, it could be liking a video, commenting on a video, I don't know. Seeing the person you see at the grocery store, talking, that exact combination of people. You're the only person who has experienced that. And yet, there's a selective group of people who have power, unlike anybody else. And those people want to use their power to mow down everybody else and everybody else's perspectives and cultures and realities and differences and communities. And to think that is so insane, that these people who only have a lifespan of 80, 90 years are all working together to create this hell. And I mean, like their one reality, just catering it all to their one reality, to their one perception, where they have this ego, but there's, I'm making a guess here, 8 million other perspectives, 8 billion other perspectives on this planet, 8 billion other worlds. Your world cannot be, it can be that powerful and that overreaching to everybody, but at the same time, it still only exists within you. But your determinants of that existence is poisoning everybody else. Just so you can feel powerful. That is so ridiculous. Like, I don't know, I remember learning about like emotions and stuff and hearing like, oh, that's just human evolution. And you know, we're like, oh, we're so advanced as a society, we've gone to space. But if people are hungry, if people don't have water, if we're killing the climate to do so, what is the point of us going to space? What is the relevance of us going to space? I mean, I guess the satellites and stuff give us like Wi-Fi and give us technology, but all this push for expansion to say we're better as people, yet we can't face our own anxiety. Yet we don't have a society that gives people the space and the time to grieve. You know, we have a space where somebody gets sick and the medical debt helps push them in the grave quicker. You know, because the pharmaceutical companies need more money, and also like, you know, sickness and illness. I learned this in sociology a few years, like maybe like 2 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer, 2-3 years ago, I want to say. And it was talking about how like stressful life, like poverty, like, you know, working a job for long hours every day, and then like having to take the bus for long hours every day. And also like, I don't know, they put the pig farms, like these biohazards in poor communities, and all of this stuff, it makes you sicker and sicker and sicker. So like, you know, it's not just like, wait, you know, that's really just a cop-out. I think doctors do, like, I had a roommate who was studying a doctor, and she was an unvaccinated Trump supporter who was pro-life. She was incredibly smart. I'm sure in some ways, like, her brain would make her an incredible doctor. But I would be scared to be treated by somebody who had those morals and those beliefs and those values. And, you know, we chop it up. Like, I hear people like, oh, you can't not be friends with somebody because they're not a Trump supporter. But it's like, yes, I can. That is a full revelation of who they are as a person. And I don't trust the Democrats either. I've never trusted them because they've never really done anything to stop anything. Genuinely, it's just like they're trying to delay the game. And then if it's like, if this is a football match, exactly, like they're playing a football match. They're not like truly enemies at all. And then I remember being taught about like ancient Greece and being taught that democracy and the way ancient Greece did everything was the right way to do things. And that also didn't make sense to me because they had slaves. I think a society that requires slavery in any way is not a noble or worthy society. It's actually, and like, if you can support slavery in any way in your mind because, oh, it's realistic, or oh, it's functional, or oh, it's necessary, and I understand, or I don't know if I should say I understand, you know, this phone, the only reason why I have this phone is probably because of slavery and the technology. And like, I saw this video today of like a gold mine in Africa, and it caved in, and all those people were gone. All those lives were gone in an instant. Hundreds of lives gone. Hundreds of futures gone. There was a boy who I didn't know, who was drunk, who was driving, I think, reckless. I don't know enough. But he died in a car. And I didn't know this boy. It was kind of eerie because I'd been talking to my mom about suicide the night before, and some of the young people I'd known who had, like a boy in my high school, killed himself. I didn't know him, but it impacted like me because I was going through a tough time at that age. So it opened, and then in college that also happened, and that one was really, really sad because the way everything went down in that situation, it was a person who wanted to be saved and was met with extreme cruelty, and that cruelty caused him to really go through with it. And this boy died. Was driving too fast down a street. Who knew what was going on with him? But you know, I was thinking about all the years he sat like in a high school classroom, all the years he did everything, probably thinking he was going to have a long life and live a long, long time. And, or maybe he didn't, you know, I don't know him. But all those plans for the future, you know, creating a life just for it to be gone because you're driving too fast down a road. That's gone, you know, that life people thought would exist for a long time is no longer here. And like that is like so many lives are being ended, and the people who are, you're told, are supposed to protect them, the people who take all of our money to protect them, don't protect them. Like what happened with Nolan Wells, where he was with his friends, and I think I have to say allegedly to legally protect myself, you know. At the best, in that situation, they did not protect him properly. They did not take care of their friend. They did not check in at him. And at the worst, allegedly, they did something to him. And the state is not investigating that. The state of Mississippi is not properly investigating that, not releasing the autopsy reports, not treating that death with the respect it deserves and bringing justice to the family. It's more centered around protecting those boys and their future and their right to get away with this, if they did or didn't do it. And you know, white supremacists have never been properly dealt with. They've never been properly dealt with, not after slavery, not when they were committing all of these hate crimes. They've never had to sit in jail truly for what they've done and been properly punished. And they've been enabled, you know, allowed to keep statues up of these awful people. You know, we're taught that the presidents are good and noble men, but they were all horrible and awful and decrepit human beings who weren't worth the opportunity of life they were given. And it's so funny, like, you know, you can't say anything about those kinds of people, when they die, like Charlie Kirk, and there's this length of mourning and this shock over this death of this person who was using his life to spread hatred against groups who were already being tortured by groups of white people. That's fucking ridiculous. But then a young boy whose life is stolen, or a young girl whose life is stolen, you know, people are shamed for mourning him, for wanting more questions, for wanting more answers. And then that excuse of death, that grace of death isn't given, where it is given when the Charlie Kirks of the world die. Like that is so ridiculous. I don't think that should be like a controversial thing to say, because like something like The Handmaid's Tale is actually so absurd. You know, that stuff is happening to women. You know, it's happening to women right now in Afghanistan. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the videos of like women in Afghanistan in the 70s, and it's like, if they hadn't, who would they get to be if they got to be themselves? If they weren't under the control of men constantly, you know? If we lived in a world that actually gave people resources and gave people support and didn't only prop one group on a pedestal, and then there's white women as well, which I'm a part of. I think that is such a complicated discussion to have, because we're complicit in so much of it. And yet we've also been tortured by the group of men who we protect and enable. You know, that's not minorities' fault at all. That's not LGBTQ people's fault, which I'm a part of that group. And that's not immigrants' fault at all that we were tortured by our male counterparts. And then I read The Vindication of the Rights of Women when I was in high school, and that really kind of opened my eyes a lot to the issues with white feminism. Because she talked about how like women didn't have like that social power, or white didn't have that social power, didn't have like that financial power, and so the tool we had was manipulation, and that we would like infantilize ourselves and manipulate everybody. And so yes, that was probably a survival thing, but then who are you using that against? Who are you punishing that with? Like, as a group, we need to wake the fuck up. We need to wake the fuck up and look at it, you know? And probably we need to feel that trauma, and we need to feel that trauma without expecting everybody to grieve that with us, or to center that, or to make that the primary, because they can't do that. But, you know, manipulation is probably encoded into our DNA. Like, I think sexually assaulted is probably the best word for the situation. It's hard to really kind of describe what happened, and whether or not I should call it that, because I said yes, but I was drunk and he violated a lot of the boundaries I set. And after that encounter with him, it woke me up to something where I started thinking about all the women in the world who had probably gone to sleep for years next to men they were afraid of, whose body became a tool of survival for them, or of currency for them. And I'm 23 right now, and I see girls my age getting married, even younger, and it's kind of like a jump scare for me. I watch a lot of movies and I watch a lot of TV, and when I was younger I used to watch like a lot of rom-coms. I can't really watch them in the same way anymore, because I'll watch these things that are supposed to be about like a woman's intimate life and her experience, but then if you look at who wrote, directed, and edited the movie, it's all man. A man deciding the arc of this character's journey and what happens and the decisions she makes, and writing that dialogue. But because it's acted by a woman, it seems like it's a woman's thoughts. And it's not. It's a man's manufactured reality, sold to us as something else. And that kind of skewed my perspective of relationships a lot. Like, this video's kind of getting long, but I like talking for long periods of time. I've struggled with my sexuality. I'm really happy to be queer. I don't quite know how that's defined, and I don't have a lot of experience under my belt. I think it's because partnership is something very sacred to me. And dating requires a lot of trial and error. But the cost of that trial and error I perceive as very high. And I sometimes want something to work, even when I know deep down it never will. And there's always felt like there was a spiritual component for me too, a deeply, deeply spiritual component for it. But I guess it's not the same if you're polyamorous. I think I consider myself to be more monogamous. Polyamory isn't something I'm completely closed off against. It has kind of always interested me in some ways, but for me, I've kind of always wanted a safe person, somebody where I can let my walls down with and really have a sustained effort of growing together for a long time and learning each other and really committing to each other. Somebody who's also curious like me about the other person and just kind of the beauty that being in love can be, and that experience. And I don't want to be with somebody where I feel cut off from my own body when I'm with them, where I feel cut off from the essence of who I am when I'm with them. There's so many times you have to make that sacrifice, whether that be with an acquaintance or at work or even with your family. And something's in my eye. And a PR team, the PR person in me wants to give every caveat to what I'm asking for. Oh, but not quite like this and not quite like that and but you know, I want somebody I can be in peace with and enjoy with, and even when we're in conflict, there's that sense of safety and trust and love and respect that's there throughout the difficult periods. I feel like my life has kind of been preparing me for a long time to be able to hold that and be able to talk about what's hard and still show up authentically and truly. And